as one of the children of late MK Abiola is vying for presidential position, the rest of the children are dragging Buhari's led government, and they are requesting for compensation. They have dragged the government before the ECOWAS Court of Justice. It is gathered that Kafila Abiola, Miriam Abiola, Adi Abiola are suing the Buhari administration on behalf of the other children. The counsel to the children, Femi Falana, filed suit number ECW on their behalf. Now, for those who do not know who MK Abiola is, he was a presidential aspirant. He finally became a presidential candidate, and he ended up winning the election, and he was murdered. He was locked up in jail. That was during the military era. Now, the children of late MKO, they are challenging the violation of the fundamental human rights to life and dignity of the human person of late Mrs. Abiola. I think they are pushing on this before the end of Buhari's tenure. Being that he's a military man, they want him to clear this and give to them certain amount of money. The plaintiffs are arguing the failure of or refusal of the defendant to protect the life of late Elijah Kudirat Abiola in the Republic of Nigeria. The Republic of Nigeria amounts to violation of Articles 14518. According to them, the combined effect of the said provisions of the African Charter and Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria is that it states that states will be held responsible if they fail to act with due diligence to prevent violations of the right to actively involved act, which amounts to the violation of the plaintiff's right, as in this case. Let us just break all the big drama. They are simply saying the right of their father, human right to life, have been infringed, and that they want compensation. That's just it. Let us stop all the big law, terms and grammar. They file this and they say they need money. The applicants aver that late Mrs. Kudirat Abiola was married to the late Chief MK Abiola, a Nigerian and community citizen. Chief MK Abiola contested and won the presidential election, like I said. This is, I think, sometimes June 12. Yes, June 12, 1993. The selection, which was adjudged fair and free by local and international election observers, was annulled by Ibrahim Babangida military junta without any legal justification. And he said, when he was asked, Babangida said he was called and was told not to, and he had no other way. He was not going to bow, and probably if he had done that, people would have seen him as the most respected military head of state. But he felt he wouldn't be safe, that if he did it, he knew that Abiola would not be able to be president of Nigeria. He would either be murdered, there will be something terrible will happen, and he wasn't going to have that happen anyway. Now, later, MK Abiola'S children, they are saying, for the sake of our mother, for her to have been robbed off this way, they want money. Mrs. Kudirat Abiola'S children, they say, we want cash. That's it. We want money, and nothing more. Now, back then in those days, Ibrahim Babangida junta illegally installed an interim national government headed by Chief Ernest Shoneko on August 27, 1993. On November 10, 1993, the Lagos High Court declared interim national government illegal, null, and void. On November 17, General Sani Abacha removed the legal interim national government and declared himself the military head of state. Abacha. Yes, Abacha. In June 1994, MK Abiola was arrested for announcing himself as the elected president of Nigeria on the basis of June 12, 1992 presidential election that he won. Sani Abacha charged MK Abiola with treasonable felony and detained him in solitary confinement in an undisclosed location for 4 years without trial. Chief Abiola'S wife, Mrs. Kudirat Abiola, led a campaign for the unconditional release of her husband from illegal custody and inauguration as elected president of Nigeria. Now, angered by her pro-campaign against Sani Abacha military junta, they decided to do what? Assassinate her. Kudirat Abiola was assassinated on June 4th, 1996. She was shot in her car at Oregun area, Lagos. The talk was that she wasn't allowed to step out because they said she had some spiritual protection. If her leg touches the ground, if you shoot, it won't penetrate. But they found out about this and they shot her right into the car. They shot into the car and they finished her there. That's what we know. And till date, no one has been held accountable for this at all. The military government condemned the assassination, even though they are behind it, of Mrs. Kudirat Abiola, and they announced it. They announced their plan to investigate and to prosecute the murderers, arrest and prosecute. But in order to divert public attention from the actual murderers, the military regime arrested some political allies and family members of Mrs. Kudirat Abiola, detained them briefly, and released them. Just to show, a lot of terrible and evil things have happened in this country. Now, following the restoration of civil rule, 1996, May, Obasanjo set up this Justice Justice Oputa Commission. For those who remember, back then, they tried to use this to kind of settle, to bring peace and harmony, to kind of, transcend from that military to the so-called civilian rule. It is still a rule, not leadership, not government. It is a rule. That's what it is. So applicants in those days requested the family of MK Abiola, they requested for investigation of the circumstances surrounding the brutal killing of Mrs. Kudirat Abiola by gang of gunmen. That's what they say. So if you are hearing unknown gunmen, it's not today. It is not today. June 4th, 1996. Now, during the sitting, December 8, 2000, Sergeant Barnabas Jabila, aka Sergeant Rogers, a member of the killer squad set up by Sani Abacha Junta, confessed. He said, I shot Mrs. Kudirat Abiola dead and attempted to kill the late Senator Abraham Adesoya and Alex Ibru by shooting them on the instruction of Major Hamza Al-Mustafa. During that period of Sani Abacha, a lot of things happened. A lot of people connected dots together. Some people got this ill-gotten wealth during that period too. A lot of things happened. People died. And now Al-Mustafa and some members of the killer squad were charged with conspiracy to murder and accessory after the fact to murder Mrs. Kudirat Abiola at the Lagos High Court. At the end of the trial, the defendants were convicted and sentenced to death for the murder of Mrs. Kudirat Abiola by the Lagos High Court. But the appeal filed by the convict against the judgment of the Lagos Court was allowed by the Court of Appeal, which freed them on technical grounds. Of course, they know that this is how it's going to be. Let us just appease the mind and make people feel comfortable. Let's hold them accountable because of what they've done. Then they will appeal. The appeal is this. The instruction did not come from me. As a military officer, obey the last order. If I'm told to kill this person, I don't have to think about it. I just need to do what my senior, my boss tells me to do. And that is the ground that, this appeal, that's the justification for the appeal. And that's it. It's a terrible one. The Apex Court said Major Al-Mustafa was properly charged with conspiracy, murder, and accessory after the fact, blah, blah, blah. They said all of that. Mrs. Kudirat Abiola, this and that was murdered, this and that. They said all of that, but is anyone in prison? No, no, no. That's what it is. Now, the children of late MK Abiola and, of course, Kudirat Abiola, they are requesting for $10 million as compensation for the unlawful killing of Elijah Kudirat Abiola. What is your take about this one? Let us meet at the comment section below.